Last year, we saw the release of the cinematic musical sensation Wicked. Coming into the film, I wasn't really sure what to expect. I'd watched The Wizard of Oz because I think it's pretty rare to find somebody in this day and age who hasn't at least seen that film or knows the basic storyline, simply through its diffusion into the collective pop culture consciousness of the world. I know this was a prequel type thing that rehabilitated the character of the Wicked Witch of the West, and I'd heard the song Defying Gravity before, and that's about it. Thus, I was pretty much flying blind with what was to come. I thought there was a good chance it was going to be a good movie, I just didn't realise how good it was going to be. For me, it was an instant classic in pretty much every single way. Great acting performances across the board, great songs, vocal performances, gorgeous world design and cinematography, choreography, costumes and styling. Everything you'd want to go right did go right, and the end result was a very successful film. In terms of its reception, it has an 88% critical score on Rotten Tomatoes off of 390 reviews, and a 95% audience score off of over 25,000 reviews. It's pretty clear that the movie's become beloved. That's not all though. In general terms, for this type of big blockbuster film, the critical reception is a secondary stat. Yes, of course the studios want their films to be well received, but more than that, they want to make money off them. The film did that in spades. It had a budget of $152 million and managed to gross $756 million, making it a smash hit and became the highest grossing musical stage-to-screen adaptation ever made. Hell, it's currently in the top 10 most lucrative musical films of all time too. Not too shabby if you ask me, and it's set to make another significant splash later this year when the sequel film and second part of the adaptation arrives with Wicked for Good, releasing on the 21st of November 2025. It's still a long way away, but you need to get that hype train rolling early to ensure that you make the biggest splash possible, and that's why we're here today. We're talking about the first Wicked for Good trailer. It's well and truly blown up. I can't speak for all of social media, but the trailer came out on YouTube on the 5th, and since then, in only about a day as of writing this, it's become the #1 trend, racked up 4.3 million views, and has a whole lot of engagement. And it shows that the hype is still fresh, and the appetite for this franchise is high. I have a feeling it's going to be an even bigger hit than the first film was, at least in the commercial sense. From here, I suppose there's nothing else for it but to take a look at the trailer. Beforehand though, alongside the actual video, we got a little blurb outline of the film to hook you in. It reads, Elphaba, now demonized as the Wicked Witch of the West, lives in exile hidden within the Ozian forest whilst continuing her fight for the freedom of Oz's silenced animals, and desperately trying to expose the truth she knows about the wizard. Glinda, meanwhile, has become the glamorous symbol of goodness for all of Oz, living at the palace in the Emerald City and reveling in the perks of fame and popularity. Under the instruction of Madame Morrible, Glinda's deployed to serve as an effervescent comfort to all of Oz, reassuring the masses that all is well under the rule of the wizard. As Glinda's stardom expands and she prepares to marry Prince Fiyero in a spectacular Ozian wedding, she's haunted by her separation from Elphaba. She attempts to broker a conciliation between Elphaba and the wizard, but those efforts fail, driving Elphaba and Glinda only further apart. The aftershocks will transform Bock and Fiyero forever and threaten the safety of Elphaba's sister Nessarose, when a girl from Kansas comes crashing into all of their lives. As an angry mob rises against the Wicked Witch, Glinda and Elphaba will need to come together one final time. With their singular friendship now the fulcrum of their futures, they'll need to truly see each other with honesty and empathy if they're going to change themselves and all of Oz for good. So clearly the film's leading into the actual events of The Wizard of Oz, but now shifting things to show the POV of both main witches. After all, in the movie, the majority of the runtime simply follows Dorothy and company. Whilst the witches do feature, it's not really much at all, especially Glinda. So this is set to be a very interesting story that can flesh out the world in a very different way. I'm certainly hyped for it, and so now let's dive into the trailer, shall we? We start off the trailer following Glinda in the Emerald City, where true to the blurb, she seems to be living the high life in a sprawling penthouse apartment. However, despite her seemingly siding with evil, I like that they're presenting it as a nuanced sort of thing. Good people can make bad decisions, hence why Elphaba comes to see her in the first place in this sequence. If she'd completely given up on her or thought that she was completely beyond redemption, I doubt she would have bothered to turn up at all. That being said, I do hope that the film dives into the idea that Glinda, regardless of her good intentions and kindness, does side with the fascist police state that are cracking down on talking animals and essentially committing a form of genocide, regressing them from intelligent beings to mere dumb animals. We get a Wizard of Oz inspired Universal Pictures logo, which I thought was really cool, before we cut to the other side of the coin. Where Glinda's living well in the lap of luxury at the simple cost of her morality, Elphaba's stuck to her morals and as such, lives in what seems to be some sort of treehouse, all alone. I mean, it's not like it's a completely terrible place to live, but that being said, I think I'd prefer the penthouse if I'm being perfectly honest. I did note that when she walks through her house here, she's stomping rather heavily and tosses her hat away forcefully, so clearly she's supposed to be angry here, but I wonder what the reason is. For me, there's probably two major ideas. Either she's returning from a visit to see Glinda and it hasn't gone well, or she saw the wizard like is mentioned in the blurb. Hell, I wouldn't be shocked if both of those instances are combined into one thing. It probably needs to be early on in the movie as Doesn't she eventually go and live in the Dark Castle, which is where Dorothy splashes her with the water and she melts away? Unless they decide to use this treehouse as her evil lair in this adaptation, which would certainly be a choice, I suppose. I'd expect that if we do see it, it's going to be after something dark happens. Like maybe when her sister gets crushed to death by a falling house. That might be a good time for it. She slams another piece of Oz propaganda about herself on a spike, and then we get a shot of her reading that magical book from the first one that only she's able to read. I gotta say, damn, the effects are looking good here. We see more propaganda, this time in the streets of a town. Is this meant to be Munchkin Land? Pretty rough if so, since isn't her sister meant to be in charge there? That being said, it was clear in the first movie that her sister takes her for granted and doesn't treat her very well, so I could easily see her being swayed into hating Elphaba simply because of all the propaganda. Also, this does make me wonder, how much time's passed? After all, for the Munchkins to consider her the Wicked Witch of the East, it must have been a while since she took over. But in the first movie, her dad's still alive and she's in school. So what's the deal here? How big's the time jump going to be, or is it just something that's going to be left up to our imagination? Anyway, back to propaganda. On the one hand, we have the villainization of Elphaba, but here we also see how Glinda's being turned into a symbol for the people, dressing her in a sparkly dress with big crown to try to make her seem larger than life, almost to make her seem like an angel. There's a shot of the flying monkeys doing flying monkey things, and then Madame Morrible using her magic to summon a twister. Almost certainly the same twister that brings Dorothy to Oz in the first place and ends up killing Nessarose. I suppose it's going to be revealed that this isn't some accident. Nessarose was killed on purpose to try to get Elphaba to lash out, make mistakes, and therefore get caught. It feels like my assumption's pretty much confirmed by the dialogue that plays over the top of this scene. Morrible openly says, "The Wicked Witch can't elude us forever." So yeah, this is a trap of some kind. On top of that, to up the drama of it all, Prince Fiero's been put in charge of a squadron who are responsible for bringing Elphaba to justice, which... yeah, good luck with that one. Dude looks absolutely miserable when he's all dressed up in his uniform, presenting himself before, I guess, Glinda, considering it cuts away to her. I mean, does this look like the face of someone who's particularly happy? I don't think so. Do love the uniform though. I feel like those hats, whenever you usually see them, look so stupid. Just always makes me think of a marching band, and it's hard to take it seriously. Somehow though, Jonathan Bailey pulls it off. Although, to be fair, he also managed to pull off mutton chops in Bridgerton. He's just built differently. They weren't great, but they would have looked so much worse on literally anyone else. There's a shot of him pointing a gun at what I assume is Elphaba, and the scene shifts to show her sort of hiding in this tree, but then again, you never really know, do you? Trailers are known to splice together scenes and audio snippets to form something that's not always 100% accurate, but that simply works in the confines of the trailer, to build hype. We have a few shots of the wizard doing his thing, and I have to say that whilst he doesn't get much screen time in the original movie, he was probably one of my favourite performances and characters. He's such a slimy, manipulative weasel, and I'm pretty eager to see that play out a bit more, but with him being even worse. I love a nice, hateable villain. I think my only real major issue is that if they keep the original story beats from the OG story, he kind of gets off scot-free. Not exactly a cathartic ending considering what a terrible, terrible person he's revealed to be, but I suppose that's simply part of the tragedy. Whilst Oz will be free at the end with a good person like Glinda in charge, I assume the character who's central to so much misery and strife pretty much gets away with it all and goes off in his hot air balloon. Makes me mad just thinking about it. We get a shot of Elphaba touching some yellow bricks for the yellow brick road, then Glinda looking at her doing some writing in the sky, talking about how the wizard lies. Man, I love the skywriting stuff. It's so nostalgic. The Surrender Dorothy segment from the OG Wizard of Oz is so iconic, and I just love getting this type of reference. I wonder if they're actually going to have her do stuff like that in this movie. Wicked is a more sympathetic portrayal to the character, but will they have her go after Dorothy for some reason? Or will all of that be excluded? It would certainly be an interesting twist to have her somewhat lose her mind and morality by targeting this little girl in her own rage and anguish after her sister's death, but at the same time, I kind of think it would be somewhat out of character for what we've seen so far. It doesn't fit with the way that Elphaba's been presented. The next major story beat of note is Glinda watching what seems to be an angry mob of Emerald City citizens come together and march off to hunt the witch, with a voiceover from Glinda telling Elphaba that they're coming for her. Yeah, based on this, I do suspect that they're not going to be pushing too hard on the Dorothy versus the witch thing. It's more going to be that she's been targeted by the people. After all, in the original, it is only Dorothy and company that go to try to find the witch to take her broomstick back to the wizard. Here, whilst we do know that they get sent out as well, a mob is also assembling, so I suspect that they're going to simply tweak the story a little bit to make it so the wizard whips up the mob into a frenzy and unleashes them on the witch as well. Moving on, we have Glinda perhaps feeling some regret or remorse for how things have played out so far, walking into what seems to be the tower the pair hid in when Elphaba first defied the wizard and he sent out the goons to try to stop her. It's the Defying Gravity Tower, at least I think that's where this is. At the same time, we have Elphaba in her treehouse reminiscing on Glinda too, with a shot of them sitting in a poppy field. I think it's clear that even more than any of the romantic side plots with Fiero, this relationship, this friendship between the two women is going to define the second movie in the same way it did the first one. This is the key story thread. We then have another shot of Glinda once again trying to get Elphaba to work with her, but to what end? Who knows? I suspect there's going to be another plea to work with the wizard that will simply go nowhere. Then we come to what is going to be some absolute god-tier cringe. The wedding between Glinda and Fiyero, where she is almost certainly going to get left at the altar. She walks down the aisle looking very elegant, seemingly happy, and he just looks miserable. Also, side note, but I love how this is the second role in only a couple of years that requires him to almost completely go through with having a wedding only to bail at the last second. It's such a specific plot point, and it's just rather amusing. But yeah, look how defeated this guy looks. Absolutely is just having all the regrets imaginable. I did know that Glinda's wearing the wedding dress in that first scene at the penthouse in the trailer, which is interesting. I wonder if this scene's first or if the penthouse scene is first. Either way, it's going to be very awkward when Fiyero leaves her. There's a shot of somebody galloping on a horse to what I assume is the witch's castle. No idea who it is, but it really could only be Fiyero or Glinda, and they seem pretty small to tell you the truth, so I'm going to guess it's Glinda. Maybe this is her warning her about the mob that's going to come to kill her, and we get that voiceover we heard earlier in the trailer. We then get our first look at Dorothy walking on the yellow brick road, and also Elphaba, the wizard, and Glinda having a dance number in the wizard's room. So I suppose they do meet up again, and Glinda tries to get her to go along with the wizard's plans. It doesn't work, and then we have a big disaster / blow up for part of the film. The next big scene of note is the wizard meeting the classic four from the movie. Dorothy, Scarecrow, Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion. My god, look at that lion, he's such a cutie! I wonder how much of the film's actually going to show these characters, or if they're just going to be in little snippets. I did note that they intentionally don't show any of the faces for Scarecrow, Tin Man, or Dorothy. I know that Fiyero somehow ends up as a Scarecrow and Bock as the Tin Man, as it says so on the film's Wikipedia page, but I do wonder, is Dorothy going to be some bigger name? Probably not. I feel like it's just they're trying to preserve the surprise for the other two characters. We see Fiyero betray the wizard in favour of Elphaba, which is clearly not going to end well for him, and we also see a bunch of freed animals crashing the wedding. So I'm guessing Elphaba does some sort of prison break, which leads to the animals crashing the wedding and ruining things, which in turn perhaps leads to Fiyero bolting, maybe volunteering to go hunt her down. I don't know, it's all a working theory at this point. We get some fun, dramatic tension with him and Glinda and Elphaba, and then a little scene where the two witches are together at the end with their cute dynamic, and then a hell of a lot more action shots, mostly just Elphaba flying around being chased by monkeys, although at some point it feels like they're going to join up with her to fit the OG story, right? And that kind of fits with that final shot with them flying behind her. Oh, and did I mention that all the songs throughout this trailer sound absolutely incredible? Holy hell, I can't wait for November. This movie is going to be an all-timer, I reckon. So yeah, with all that being said, these have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of the Wicked for Good trailer? Do you like it? Hate it? Are you hyped for the movie? Maybe not? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.